Hey, what's up YouTube? This is We All Juggle Knives with a review of the Aquitana by Aitor. Now, Aitor is a Spanish company, and this is made in Spain. It said so on the box and on the blade itself. You see all the marks on this blade. I have beat this up extensively, and I have a lot of usage footage coming up in this video. All right, the blade length on this, 8.5 inches by my measure, but the actual edge length is 8 inches. Right, and you see it's got a true full tang. Right, the thickness on this is listed as 5 millimeters. This knife has a very long handle. In fact, if you have extra large sized hands, it's going to have no trouble accommodating you. Right, it also adds to the balance of the knife. It's got an impressive blade shape. You see it's extremely pointed and extra wide. This strikes me as a design that was primarily meant as a weapon, which is strange because even among combat utility knives, military knives, usually they're meant as utility first and weapon second, but this is the reverse. Here it is next to the USMC K-bar. As you can see, it's significantly longer and wider than the K-bar. Right, and the tang is also wider than the K-bar's tang, so that's good. I mean, it's going to be durable. Also note the triangular shaped lanyard hole. Okay, usage footage coming at ya. So there you see it making some shavings, and now if you look closely, some of those shavings are quite thin. I have not sharpened this before using it. This is the edge that it came with. So it came quite sharp. Right, which brings up another point. Even though this looks to me to be designed primarily as a weapon first, it's still useful to show it doing outdoor stuff because one, you might want to use it for some outdoor stuff. But number two, this for example gives you an idea of how sharp it came. Right, and I'm going to pound it through some pieces of firewood later, which is going to give us an idea of durability. Right, so before you even think of using something as a weapon, you want to know if it can stand up to just basic tasks, right? Is it going to break? Does it come sharp? Does it retain, does it have edge retention? Is it going to chip? All right, so yeah, we're going to demonstrate it doing a lot of outdoorsy stuff. Now, as far as making shavings, it's easier to make shavings with like a shorter knife usually. I mean, most bushcrafters will use a 4-inch long blade. So, okay, this is not the ideal knife for making shavings, but if you are carrying this, I'm going to assume you're not also going to carry like a 4-inch blade. And it's perfectly adequate for making these shavings, you know. You could get your fire going, get your ferro rod. Now this knife is listed as the Aquitana at the store I got it from and every other store I've seen, and Google says that that means Aquarius, but on the blade itself is written Aquitania, which is a part of France that's next to Spain. So I'm not sure why the discrepancy in the names. But I really am impressed by the blade shape of this knife. I mean, it looks badass. Let's just put it out there. It does look badass. Let's talk steel. The steel on this is MV58. Now, I'm not too familiar with that steel, but apparently it is a stainless steel that's a proprietary steel of the Spanish company that manufactures this, and apparently it's widely used in a lot of the better Spanish-made knives. Here it is batoning. Now, I was very impressed by how this steel performed. In fact, there's another Spanish knife that's a lot more expensive than this that I was not going to get because I didn't want to pay that much for the steel, for this same steel. But after using this, I'm reconsidering that because this thing did not chip at all. And I abused this thing a lot. I mean, this is just a highlight reel, dude. I mean, you saw how beat up that blade was. The edge did not chip at all. I mean, it was pristine. Now, as far as using this to baton, it's not the best batoner. The geometry on this, it's not optimized for splitting firewood. Now, it might be hard to tell just from watching this, but trust me, It was not that efficient at batoning. I'm just like hitting it like a caveman, but because the bevel is so high, it just doesn't split the wood as efficiently as some other blades I've used, like let's say my BK9. Right, I basically had to hit it a lot harder and hit it more times than with other blades. Right, but that's fine. This was still a very useful thing to do because you want to know that your knife is not going to break. And I beat this thing up severely. And yet more usage, stabbing it really hard into this log. This is also kind of a wink and a nod to the weapon potential of this knife. Just imagine that log, imagine that's the face of an enemy soldier. You get the idea. Now, I do think the weapon usage of a knife like this is pretty obvious, but just to put a finer point on it, this thing has a lot of reach at 8.5 inches. It's very pointed, and it's also very wide, which means it would create a very large wound channel. Now, I don't want to get too gruesome. People complain, hey, some of my subscribers, my viewers, are active duty military, and I've talked to at least 2 guys that had to go into hand-to-hand combat. So, when I talk about weapon use, it's not frivolous. This is the sheath that you get. It has a secondary pocket there, which is removable. It has a strap so you can tie this down to your thigh. It's Cordura. It's got that belt loop there with Velcro. And it has 2 retaining straps. All right, one diagonal and one horizontal. They do hold it very securely. But they are Velcro, and that's not ideal for a military knife sheath because it makes noise. There's also a synthetic insert you see there. All right, so that is the sheath that you get. More usage footage. We're carving something. Can you guess what we're carving? I'll give you a hint. It's the only thing I know how to carve. Well, almost. It's something very easy to carve. We're carving a steak. Yes. We're going to make a very pointy piece of wood. One could call it a wooden spike. Anti-vampire weapon. Now, there are 2 steps to carving a steak. First, you carve your piece of wood into something vaguely resembling a steak, and then you carve it the rest of the way. All right, that was a bad joke, I'm kidding. But yeah, this is pretty bushcrafty. I did speed up this footage because it's actually pretty boring carving a steak, especially because this wood was a little bit gnarly. It's not the ideal wood to carve something out of, right? But yeah, I'm not a bushcraft guy, but I dabble a little bit. I've actually learned quite a bit in the last few years, right? But certainly no instructor. But I can carve a steak and some notches. Yeah, just putting the finishing touches on my creation, making it extremely pointed. I think this is a pretty good steak. I think that could take out a vampire if I timed everything right. All right, but let's summarize this knife. It can baton. It can carve things. It can make shavings. It can stab an enemy soldier in the face. It's not really ideal for any of those, except for the stabbing to the face part. It is pretty ideal for that. But as far, it's not a bushcraft knife, but you could use it as a camp knife. It's very durable, so maybe more of a survival knife. Oh yeah, there's more steaks. That other knife is the Condor Matagi. Yes, I carved a lot of steaks that day. What do you do? We all juggle knives. All you do is sit around and carve steaks all day? Well, yeah, actually, that is what I did that day. It was fun. It was relaxing. All right, more summary of this knife. It's very durable. I mean, I beat the crap out of it with the batoning. And that steel, it's a stainless steel. It's very corrosion resistant. Also, the gray finish on this, whatever it is, that finish is quite durable as well. The knife, it's full tang, it's fairly thick, fairly heavy. I mean, it's a beast and it's a vicious knife. You can see the intent on this knife. So basically, what we have here is a weapon that can be used for some camp utility chores as well. And you see I did add a little grip to the knife just for some extra traction. Really, that's not necessary, but I was stabbing this into the log fairly hard, so I'll take all the extra grip that I can get. But I thoroughly beat this knife up. There was not anything close to a chip on the edge. And the way this came, the edge was really good. It had no burr whatsoever. Right? You'd be amazed how many, even expensive knives, will come with a little burr that I have to remove. This edge was perfect, and even through all the chopping, stabbing, batoning, and I did a lot of stuff off camera too, the edge held up. So I was actually impressed by how tough that steel is. Now, this knife is available on Amazon. That's where I got it. I will include the link. So overall, I really like this knife. Now, yeah, it is combat utility, oriented more towards the weapon usage, which is unusual, but not unheard of. And I love the blade shape. This is the type of thing, people are going to buy this and not even listen to what I had to say about it. They're just going to look at that blade shape and want one. Well, hey, that's cool, but just in case you want to know if it's actually good, in addition to looking good, yes, it is actually good. I was very pleased with this knife. Hope you enjoyed seeing it. This has been We All Juggle Knives.